Yo, what is up people? Welcome back to another video. My name is Armin Jamali, also known as Inactive User, and today I will explain what has been happening with me ever since I left the elevator community. As you might know, I left the elevator community because I lost interest, and because of many people being absolute trash heads in the community, except for you fans because you are amazing and nice to me, unless you hate me. But in this video, I wanted to apologize for being an absolute piece of crap in 2021 and explain where I have been ever since I left. Back when I joined the community, I was extremely dumb and some people were targeting me for hate because I was acting up. But over time, I have completely changed into a person who is no longer mentally disabled. I think the main cause of drama is by an elevator company that ends with an X, which is Cortex. And in my opinion, I feel like Cobalt is better and is less of a frowned upon community than Cortex. And I also feel like Isaac, who is the owner of Cortex, might not be maintaining his company very well, if I remember correctly. Because I am not in the community now, it wouldn't matter. I also saw in the Cortex server that he called me a simp because I copied his entire avatar one day and mentioned that I follow him everywhere. I think he was rude to me once, or maybe many times, no clue how many, if I remember correctly. And so that is why I decided to copy his avatar. Cobalt, on the other hand, is very well maintained, has no BS, and it never breaks down. Cobalt is an absolute bar of steel, while Cortex is so weak, like a ball of super thin ice. I am aware that I live in the US, and Cortex is an American company, but I feel like the people there were absolute addicts and had no clue what they were doing because they were going too far, like sending some nonsense shit posts, unlike how my friends are nice and amazing. No sarcasm intended, and that does not make me mentally disabled. Despite the fact that I'm not in the elevator community, I unfortunately never liked Cortex. I also remember back in July of 2021, it was after Independence Day, there were mass hacking incidents. One of the people involved was My Human Body, who hacked Cortex Elevators HQ to publish as a new game called Hortex Elevators HQ. Not Cortex, Hortex with an H. And there was another person named CafeFan222 who once leaked many assets and also leaked someone's house address too. I was told by someone of who it was, but I'm not going to disclose who the user is. But good news is that Cobalt wasn't hacked, only part of Cortex was. However, a person named C Captain Zane thought I was CafeFan222 himself because I was editing an uncopylocked game that was part of the hacking rebellion, and he blamed me for being CafeFan222 himself, and he thought I was him. I do not think if anyone knows, but the FBI can actually track hackers and they can get arrested for hacking, which is a felony. But does it look like I was arrested after he blamed me? No! I think doxing is technically hacking because the person who doxes is the mastermind of hacking the target people. Ever since I got involved back in the beginning of 2021 into the elevator community, I made a lot of Roblox elevator videos and so many people were a fan of me, more than other people, probably because I don't just show a particular elevator or one set in the building in each video. I tour all the elevators in a building with a voiceover, and because my videos are super high quality and I explain everything very well. So here's the story of what I am into now and what is up with me. Starting with life in school, I have already finished 9th grade at this point, and I am going into 10th grade this upcoming year. Let me share some experiences and what the work was like in different classes from the start to the end of 9th grade. I took biology, geometry, US history, Spanish, English, digital art, and PE. In biology, we learn about how our body systems work and how different organisms work, but we usually have written assessments and they were a lot harder than I expected. In my geometry class, we learn about shapes, angles, and how their functions work. In my US history class, we learn about the history of the US, we learned about the Great Depression, the Progressive Era, and a lot of wars that happened involving with the USA. In Spanish 1, we learned the basics of the language, like words, the numbers, how to make sentences, daily life, and so on and so forth. In my English class, we are learning about analysis, writing, and even a lot of literary elements. And in my digital art class, we make a lot of Photoshop and Illustrator art designs. Now, let me tell you about what happened during 8th grade in middle school. Some people previously from 2022 until around like November-ish 2023 were being kind of bossy and rude. I will tell the things that happened. One time, this was in 8th grade, the 2022 to 2023 school year. One day, somebody, I forgot who this person was, but I am glad not to disclose it, yelled out, "Armin's homophobic," in the locker room without getting in trouble. Another time was when my English co-teacher in 8th grade, we had 2 English teachers in that particular class, but I will not disclose the name of that teacher for confidential reasons, was being very rude to me not once, not twice, but 3 times that school year. Once when I was doing a narrative brainstorm assignment and I accidentally went onto a section that I was not supposed to be on. It was not on purpose, but it was on accident because I think I misread the instructions. And as a result, the teacher yelled at me instead of telling me nicely to go back to the section we were doing. The second time was when we were taking a standardized test. Yes, that exact person I was telling was the same proctor for that test. There was a rule where after you finished the test, you were not allowed to have your electronics out after the test. I had to check my email for anything that was graded. Apparently she noticed and she quietly yelled at me rudely to put my Chromebook away. And the third time was on the last day of school where I did something wrong and I do not remember what it was, and she was rude for the third time. I am glad to be out of that vicinity because the high school teachers are nicer and we basically have a lot of freedom to ourselves. And I remember back in October of 2023, I asked my table mate, which I will not disclose in my geometry class, about how his day was. And he said, "I'm not answering that. Either he was having a bad day or probably because he finds me as an idiot, which I am not, for God's sake. But either way, I am assuming the first option. I am a very polite person, yet that won't stop me from asking how people's days are. The good news is that my geometry teacher from the first semester, he was my first semester teacher, did not assign seats. So the next day I decided to switch to a spot that was vacant, and there was another student and I asked how his day was, and he answered every single time I asked. I did this every day he was here for the first semester, but unfortunately he was not in any of my classes the second semester, and now I have a different geometry teacher who assigned seats. I liked my first semester geometry teacher, in my opinion. And on that exact day where the first student did not answer my question, I had a psychiatrist appointment that day, and I told him about that particular situation, and he told me that having someone say, "I'm not answering that," is rude. He could have used, "I don't prefer to answer that right now." He also told me that he was probably having a bad day though, which, as I said, I agree with. Anyways, here's what I am interested into now. Back in May of 2022, when I was still in the elevator community, I became interested into electricity when one time in my bathroom there was only one light bulb left that was working on the 2 light fixtures I had on the wall, and then one day the bulb completely went out. I decided to go to the Home Depot with my dad, and we got a pack of a few light bulbs. I wanted to replace the light bulbs myself, and as a matter of fact, I did so successfully. I became so interested, I decided to watch a lot of video tutorials on how to do a lot more with electricity, and in October of 2022, I came up with one of the best ideas with my house. I decided to upgrade the recessed can lights from one with a light bulb to replacing it with an LED trim unit that goes up into the can. I did this for the whole entire house, and as a result, my parents loved it. I also remember replacing a few light fixtures, and I did it at all my other family members' houses. I also remember replacing a dimmer in my aunt's house because the light turned on, but the dimmer did not dim the lights. I put in dimmable bulbs because at the time my aunt was happy to have me replace all of her light bulbs, so when I replaced that dimmer, it turns out that the dimmer driver was busted. And I remember installing 2 light switches from a pull chain light in my attic utility room and the basement utility room where I had to replace the entire light unit and run new wires through the walls. The reason why I upgraded was not because I wanted to go to a modern design, but most of the time the pull chain is faulty. For example, when I pull that switch, the light comes on for a few milliseconds and then turns off. But when I yank it or pull it a few more times, it turns on without flickering. There wasn't a way to fix it, and besides, our house is around 12 or 13 years old, so it's kind of new. I also remember going to my grandparents' house to replace a light fixture with fluorescent tubes to LED tubes. I used the LED tubes where you do not have the option to use a ballast. A ballast is like a transformer that limits current, but I think it keeps the same voltage, and oftentimes ballasts can fail and they waste a lot of energy. So after I removed the fluorescent bulbs, I had to get my screwdriver to get into the wiring compartment where the ballast was. After I removed the ballast, I rewired the fixture where one side of the tube sockets was the incoming power and the other side is the outgoing power. After I put the cover back on to the wiring compartment, I turned on the breaker, turned the light switch on, and everything worked successfully. My dad was there with my grandparents and they were very happy with it. I also replaced some dimmers at my aunt's house back in February and they were very happy with it. So here are my plans after I make this video. I might return to making videos again, but it will mostly be about electricity, how-tos, but it will not often be on Roblox or elevators, and I might rename my channel to Lighting and Electricity Enthusiasm. And yeah, so that is all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, so thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna get back into making videos, but I won't upload as often. So thank you very much, and peace.